Hello, and welcome to the webinar on assessing student needs for AT reading supports. My name is Linda Daly, and I'm an AT specialist with the Special Education Technology Center. Today's webinar, we're going to be looking at 3 particular programs that give you some assessment tools for assessing reading supports that your students will need. Each one's a little bit different, but we'll go ahead and show them to you so that you can see if these might be something that you can use for your students. The first one we're going to look at is the Don Johnston PAR, which stands for Protocol for Accommodations in Reading. And the PAR actually looks at the specific reading accommodations and which ones will benefit your students, whether it's an adult reader or whether a text reader will benefit them. I'll show you just a brief overview of how to administer the PAR, and then we'll also talk about action signs to know when it might be appropriate to use the PAR. The next one we're going to look at is Text Helps Fluency Tutor, and what Fluency Tutor will help teachers assess their students' reading fluency and how to assign those reading passages and score them, and then how students will access the reading passages. And the next one I'll just briefly introduce is Read Naturally and what tools are available within the Read Naturally curriculum for assessment and then what those tools assess. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. What I wanted to start with first is what are the signs that a child might need reading accommodations? And I'm going to go ahead and I believe this might make it a little bigger on your screen. And then if you make your screen full screen, you'll see this even better. So this is directly out of the PAR guide. And I like to show this because really it's just a nice tool to think about when might a child need reading accommodations. When might you want to do the PAR? When might you want to start looking at that? So when you have students who struggle to decode or read with fluency but demonstrate the ability to comprehend at a significantly higher level when an adult reads aloud. Or if you have students who are in reading interventions who are struggling to keep up in content level classes. Those are 2 of the signs. Also, the students who do well in class except when they need to read and respond to written material. Or if students read fluently but lack comprehension. And then the last sign on this list is students who have been successful in class using only an adult reader accommodation. So when you have those students, you might want to consider looking at the PAR and seeing if they would benefit from using a text reader because that would give them more independence. And so you could consider that if you have students who show these signs. And so what is the PAR exactly? Well, the PAR is a research-based systematic process to determine what accommodations will benefit a specific student. So this is not a standardized test. It's a process that you can do that's data-driven and gives you some specific data to show, is that adult reader useful as an accommodation? Is text-to-speech useful as an accommodation? Will these benefit your students? So it gives concrete data regarding the benefit, which is really nice because as we're asking for these reading accommodations, we want to have that concrete data to show that we have shown with data that this accommodation will help the student, and this will give you that concrete data. It is made for grades 1 through 10, so there's reading passages that are grade leveled from grades 1 through 10, developed by Denise DeCoste and Linda Bastiani-Wilson, and probably many of you have heard of them because they're part of the group of people that we know as experts in this field. So originally PAR was free. You can still get the original PAR for free. You go to the Don Johnston website, and when you go to PAR, you'll see an option to download the original PAR, or you can download the UPAR. The original PAR, you will download the guide, you will download all the reading passages, all the scoring sheets. It's all in print form, and then you will just have to print it out yourself. That is free. If you want to pay for the subscription, you can get the UPAR, which assesses multiple students at one time, and it also tracks data and gives you some data at a nice set of data at a glance picture with what your students are doing. The thing with the UPAR is it's all done on the computer, and so that's why you can do a whole class at a time. Each student's on their own version of PAR, and it's keeping track of that for them and actually administering the assessment for them. And
that's
at the
if
end,
you have the subscription? Is that if you have the subscription, Linda?
yes, thank you. That is the subscription. So you have to pay for that one. So, and that is the only one that's going to give you the data. So you're going to get the data yourself if you print it out, but the UPAR will give you some aggregate data and some information that it will collate for you. But you'll have to collect the data yourself if you do the free one. Is that clear?
Mm-hmm.
So, thanks. And so this is available through donjohnston.com and /UPAR. At the end, I'm not going to send you my PowerPoint because I'm going to do a lot of sharing my screen and going to these different places. Instead, I'm going to send you a sheet with all the resources, with all the web addresses where you can go get this information, because it seemed like that's really the part of the presentation that's most beneficial to you. So, so what we're going to do is just show you the process of PAR. So the way you do the PAR and administer it yourself is you first have your students, they do an oral reading. So the student first reads aloud a reading passage at his or her documented independent reading level to serve as a baseline and to gauge reading speed. The teacher takes note of fluency and reading speed. Comprehension questions are verbally presented by the adult and scored accordingly. A Likert scale is used to rate the student's feelings about reading aloud. Because part of using an accommodation or how a student needs one is how do they even feel about it. If they hate the accommodation, there's some work to do to get them to use it. So that's why the Likert scale is used here too. So, so that's the way you do your baseline is we do the student's oral reading score. So that's this first part right here. And then we move on to the adult reader. So the adult reader, to determine the effectiveness of the adult read aloud accommodation, the adult reads a passage aloud at the student's grade level. So that's usually higher if you're looking at this than their documented read level. So the adult reads the passage at the student's grade level while the student follows on a paper copy of the passage. Again, comprehension questions are verbally presented by the adult and scored accordingly. And again, we use the Likert scale to see how the student feels about having an adult read aloud. And I will show you in just a minute the scoring sheets because this walks you right through scoring all of this. So then we've done the student's oral reading, the adult reader, and the next one is the text reader. So we do a text reader to determine the effectiveness of that accommodation. The student uses the text reader that's available at their school. If you don't have a text reader available at your school, I also give you resources at the end for some free text readers that you can download and use. It is preferable to use a text reader that a student is familiar with. So if your student has never used a text reader before you do this process, it would be a good idea to just show them how to use that text reader and get them at least familiar with it enough that they can be doing this assessment. So the text-to-speech rate should be set approximately 20% higher than the student's oral reading rate. Then the student is actually given an opportunity to increase or decrease the rate of text-to-speech as well as the font size. So you do a little of that ahead of time so that you're setting them up for an accurate assessment of whether text-to-speech is a good option for them. So again, comprehension questions are presented verbally and scored accordingly. So we're not testing their ability to read the comprehension questions. We want to just read those to them so that we're getting an accurate reading of how much they comprehended the passage. And then again, the Likert scale is used to rate the student's feelings about the text reader. I do have a basic, a little video here of how to use the PAR. I'm just going to show you a little bit of it so you can see how it gets set up. And then I'll go through and show you the actual scoring sheets and how those are used. So we'll just play the video, just a little bit of it. So, whoops, I thought I had it loaded. You know what? It looks like it's not loaded. So I will tell you that I have that link on that sheet. So I'm sorry about that. I thought when I checked this earlier that I'd actually loaded it. I'd loaded the picture of it and not the video. But it will show you a teacher actually administering it to a student. So it's a nice thing if you want to look at it to see how it's actually administered from beginning to end. And it's not a very long video, but I do have that link on the end of the resources. So I was debating about whether I really wanted to show that, so I guess I determined that already. But we'll go ahead and go out, and I'm going to share my desktop, and I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the passages you're going to use. So let me just shrink this down. And this is the part where, please, if you don't see something, let me know, because this is the part where things can lag behind. So I want to make sure I'm talking about what you see on the screen, because what I see may be different. So the first thing I want to show you is I will actually show you the background data you take first of all. So first of all, you take some background data about the student and what their current levels and assessments are and their experiences with the accommodation, so that you get all of that information in there. And as I go through these, I'm just going to shrink them back down and pull up another one. And then what you do also is you go ahead and you get some, this is the form you'll be scoring it on, so you will, when you're done. So you'll actually score it. And again, you have their grade and their school and the examiner and the test location. You'll list the passage they've read, the Likert rating, their words per minute, and then I'll show you how the green, yellow, and red are found in a minute. So you have the student's oral reading, the adult reader, the text reader, and then an additional method. And this is where this test becomes part of you as the administrator of the test determining how many times you might want to do this, because you start with the student's great oral reading, and then you go up to their grade level. But if they are documented at a second grade reading level and they are a ninth grader, you might want to actually give them a fifth grade passage instead of a ninth grade to start with. And if they do really well, then you might want to move up to the ninth grade. Or if you give them their actual grade level and they just really don't do well, you might want to back it down but go above their documented reading level. So you don't have to stick to exactly the way this tells you to do it. You can use some of your own knowledge of the student, and also we might give them more than one passage if they did really well and go up higher and see how high they can go. Does that make sense, what I'm saying there? And so on this one, it's a third grade passage, and it's called Backyard Bugs. And what you're going to see is it's 3N. That means narrative. I'm going to go ahead and show you what you get when you go to the PAR. So let me just pull that up. And I had a little goofy thing happen with my computer right before I presented, so my files are not in the order I wanted them to be in, so I might have to go around a little bit. But I just want to show you, you have your data forms, your scoring forms, and your student passages. And we'll just look at grade 3. And you'll see you get several choices, and they're narrative or expository. But they're all grade 3, narrative or expository. So they give you several passages that you can use. And then the student gets this one, and it's done in a note file so that you can load it right into a text reader, and it won't have any of the formatting that the text reader might struggle with. So you print this out for them. They keep this in front of them, or they have it on the computer in front of them. And they keep it in front of them when you're asking them the comprehension questions so that they can go back and look at it too. So,
and Linda?
Yes.
The things that you showed us that you get, are those with the free version or with the subscription?
Those are the free version. So that's what I'm showing you all is the free version. Good question. So that was actually the free version that I just showed you.
Nice.
So Yeah, and so they all come, and I'm actually going to go back to them because one of the ones that I thought I had pulled up, I don't have pulled up. So I'm going to go ahead, and those are the passages. So I'm going to show you the scoring forms. So I'm going to go to Grade 3 scoring forms, and I'm going to go to Backyard Bugs, and you'll see this is your scoring form. So here is what you get when this would be what the person administering it has in front of them. So again, you have the student, the date, the testing conditions, because those are important to know when we're thinking about how the student's doing. You circle whether it's the oral reading, the adult reader, or the text reader. And actually, I think I can use I'm going to use my little highlighters here so that we can, I can maybe show you some of these things. So, so you circle the oral reading right here, or you can the adult reader or the text reader. Can you guys see that on your screen okay when I'm highlighting?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then as they're reading, you just time them. At 1 minute, you just make a little mark. And then you can later go back and count the number of words they read in 1 minute, and you just put it right here in this spot. If that is going to be difficult for your student to see you marking things, it's totally acceptable to have a second person who's out of the student's eyesight who's doing the marking. Because for some students, that would distract them to see the person marking. So you can have it with somebody in the second person doing that. And then the student reads the entire passage, or you read it to them, or the computer reads it to them. And then you have the comprehension questions down here. They give you the answers, which is really nice. So here's the first one in the answer. You just simply X whichever one, incorrect or correct. The thing that's also nice that I like about this is they tell you what type of question it is, main idea, fact, inference, vocabulary, which also gives you a little more information about what your student might be struggling with on those comprehension questions. And so then you take all of those answers and you add up your incorrect ones and you circle you add up your correct ones. You circle how many are correct. If you get 1 to 2 correct, you have red. If you get 3 to 6 correct, you have yellow. And if you have 7 to 8 correct, you have green. So that's where, when I showed you on the data form, you were going to put yellow, green, or red. And you're just going to mark that right next to that passage. And then the other thing that you can go back later and do is look at how many correct they got of the main idea, of the fact, inference, and vocabulary. So it gives you that information. And then you also have your Likert scale. You just circle which one is that they liked. And then you can always put comments and observations. So it's just that one piece, but it certainly has a lot of information you're going to get on it. So, so that's how that scoring piece works. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to shrink this down. And I think if I just click this, it's going to allow me to do that. And so that is the different parts of the PAR. And then I'm just going to go and show you very quickly that once you have those scored and you've shown whether they've done green, they've answered quite a few correctly, yellow, they've struggled a little, or red, they haven't. You put it on this graph, and that is just a great visual. So here's an 11th grader who is reading. In the 6th grade, the oral student read by themselves, they got a yellow, but with an adult reader or a text reader, they could get all the way up to the 11th grade. So that tells you right off, just looking at it, hey, this person could probably benefit from either of those accommodations. And then you have, here's an 8th grader, and they are reading at a 4th grade level and read very fine, actually, orally. And then up here, the adult reader, they still read fine. The text reader, they struggled a little. And the adult reading at an 8th grade, their grade level, the adult reader or the text reader, they really struggled a lot. Now, they went ahead and gave another reading of a silent read by the student and showed that they struggled a little when they did that. So you'll put this on here, and it'll give you that data right there. And then here we have a 7th grader, and it looks like they do well with the text reader, but the text reader, or the adult reader, but the text reader they struggle with. So that might not be a good accommodation for them. The thing about that is with an adult reader, they got up to 7th grade. So what this also might tell you is maybe you could do some practice with a text reader, and as they got more comfortable with it, they might be able to use it, because that would give them that more independent reading. And it may just be that they're not comfortable, or it may be that it's not a good accommodation. The thing that's nice about this is you can administer this as often as you want. So you could try and then use the accommodation, and then a couple months later come back and redo this and see if maybe they could do a little bit better with a text reader, or if they've even gotten to a higher level of reading. So that's the PAR. Do you have any questions about how that's administered, or anything about what I've shown you here? And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my desktop in case there's some chats. So, are there any questions about that?
No, thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. So then I'll just quickly tell you about the UPAR, because I do want you to know about that. That's the automated protocol, so it actually requires no staff training, so you don't even have to train. That's one thing I want to tell you is the manual that comes with this, if you do choose to do the free one, walks you right through this step by step. So the training is really minimal. It's just there is training required. With the UPAR, which this is the one that is a subscription-based, you can do a group implementation. So it's not limited to the one-on-one like the print one is. It's automated scoring of the reading passages. There's centralized data collection, still reading passages from 1st to 10th grade, and it's an online delivery. U stands for universal, so iPad, Chromebook, computer, whichever one you want to use. So the student can take the assessment on any of those devices. So that's the UPAR, and that's PAR, and that's from Don Johnston. And as I said, I will send you the link to that. So if we don't have any other questions, I'll go on to the Fluency Tutor. And this is part of Text Help. And so Fluency Tutor for Google is actually a Google Chrome app. And what it's for is students to practice their fluency and teachers to hear how well the students are doing fluency. I am actually going to show you the free version, so whatever I show you today is free. There is more data and more scoring options if you do choose the premium version. So, but I'm going to show you the free version. So, and I'm going to just mute one person because I'm hearing background noise, but if you have something you want to say, please just put it in the chat, okay? So Kathleen, I've just muted you, but feel free to enter things in the chat if you want me to unmute you. So students record their reading passages and actually send them to the teacher. This is all done through Google Drive, so that's why it's Fluency Tutor for Google. Your teachers can assign passages to their students. There is a large selection of passages that Text Help already has, and they're already there by Lexile level. Or you can create your own, or you can take web pages and create those, and then you share those with your students. So the teachers then, the student goes ahead and reads whatever their teacher has shared with them, and then they send it back to the teacher, so the teacher can listen to the student at any time. So you could have your students reading, and then you could listen to it later. You don't have to do it all right there. I just remember when I volunteered in my kids' classrooms, I did this for the teachers a lot. I would go out in the hall and I would do their readings with them and their fluency readings. And so that way the teacher could get through more students, but they didn't get to hear the students as much as I did. And so this is a way that, you could have a helper or a para-educator go out, do this with the student, take them to a quiet room, and yet the teacher could still listen to it and score it at a time that works better to have them go through all of them. The teachers can listen at any time. The students have access to a dictionary, a picture dictionary, and translation tools. They can also have the passage read back to them. Now, as a teacher, you can turn that off so they don't have that. And then also the thing that's nice is the students can actually find something on their own that they're interested in, they can choose Fluency Tutor from their own Google Chrome, and they can read it and send it to their teacher. So something they just found and they were interested in, they could actually send that reading to the teacher. It doesn't have to be something that was assigned by the teacher. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to show you I took some screenshots because it does make me a little nervous when I'm on my webinars, when I go to things that are web-based, because I've got the Ready Talk going through the web, and then I'm trying to do some other things on the web. So I've made some screenshots, and so I'm going to show you those. But before I do that, I just hear somebody else in the background. If you don't mind muting yourself, if there's some talking in the background, because it's coming through. So, so there we go. And now I'll share my desktop. So here is Fluency Tutor, and let me just move this out of the way so you don't see that anymore. You can see that you can get a 30-day trial period for the entire premium set. I have let that expire, so that's why it says upgrade to premium today. I actually want you to see what the free includes because I think it's pretty powerful, even just the free version. So that's why I don't show you the premium version, because this way you could always see what's available just on the free one. So I have logged on as a teacher, and I have chosen the selection here with my students. And so you can see 2 students that I went ahead and created, mock students for. It tells you their average leg style, their average age, total time on task. So it tells you how long they've actually opened up and used Fluency Tutor, and then total reading time. So that's how long, because they can open it up and look at things and have the passage open, but they're not actually reading. And so then when they're reading and recording, it records that too. So you can see, and this is all in the free version, you can see the stats on how much your students are using the Fluency Tutor. It shows you the total passages read and the average words per minute. So, and I never get that. So honestly, that might be part of the premium version. So, and then if you have Google Classroom, you can send out reading passages to your whole class at one time, or you can bring in your class at one time, or you can add students to your class with a code you've been given. So I don't have Google Classroom set up. This is what you would see if you just want to use this and you don't have Google Classroom set up. You can still use it. You have a class code that's down here, and you might not be seeing that. Let me bring my little tools again so that I can show them to you. So you have a class code down here, and then you can, and it's up here too. And so your students then would log on to Fluency Tutor and just use your class code. So that's how you can do that. And then I wanted to show you how you'd see the assessments. So this, and it may work. It could take a little too much time. And so I do have screenshots because I'm just not sure that if the web's going to work. Like I say, I'm doing the Ready Talk through the web, and then this Fluency Tutor goes through the web. So I think we're going to go ahead and use the screenshots because it looks like it's not pulling it up as fast as we want. But I'm just going to show you the teacher assessment page. And so let me make this big for you. So if you go to assessments, it shows you your students. It shows you what the activity was, finished reading this passage. Finished reading this passage. Tells you the tools they use. So they use the dictionary, the translator, the picture dictionary. Honestly, I can't remember what that tool is. So when we look at the student page, we might see that. And then you can score the passage. You just click right here. Let me just I'm going to get my little tools out again. So you can click right here to score the passage, and this window comes up, and you can play it, and it will score it. And then you get to say, read this passage again, or thumbs up, you did a great job. So that's how you score the passage. You can see what your students have done there. I'm going to go ahead and shrink this one down. Oops. It looks like I have to get rid of that tool before I can shrink it. So that was the teacher assessment page. And I'm just going to, for the sake of not being confusing, I'm going to shrink that one down too so you don't have that. And then I showed you the teacher dashboard originally, but let me just show you this one that will show you your recent shares. So those are the most recent passages you shared with students. It shows you that. Here's how you linked it. We did it through Google Drive. So that's the ones you've shared. I also want to show you the list of passages. And so here's how you share a passage as a teacher. And all I'm doing is going, let me get my little tools out here so I can show you again. I'm going through this menu. So you had recent activity, we had recent shares, I showed you the students, I showed you the assessment. This is feedback for text help. But if you want to go to share a passage, this is where you'll go. And so then what you'll see is they just have a list of passages, and they have hundreds of them. And they are, here's the title. They give you a brief description of it, the lexile level, the reading age that it's appropriate for, the word count, and then the type of passage. And so this is Fluency Tutor. So once you select it, you would just select the passage you want to read, and then it will go to a screen that asks you, do you want to share it through Google Classroom or through Google Drive? And it will walk you right through it. So that's how you as a teacher share the passage. What I want to show you next is what the students see on their side. So the students will see, they will, on their dashboard, they'll see all the, this is the, their running record of all of their passages that they've read. So here's the activity, here's the passage they've read, what they've done. They've finished the assessment, they've started reading it, they've finished it, they've started it. So it keeps track of whether they actually read the whole thing or if they've just started doing it. Over here, it will show their score. And so once they have read the passage, if you gave them a thumbs up, this will show a thumbs up right here. Or it will show the read again. That will show right where it is. And so that's what they'll see in there. And then they can also listen to their passage again from this screen. And so, yes.
Do students need a Google account then? Do they have to log into Google to do this?
Yes, that's a very good question. Yes, they do. They need an account to log in on their own.
Okay. Because don't they have to be, somebody told me they have to be 13 or something to have a Gmail account, or are schools setting that up for them?
I think the school can set it up, and then they don't have to be 13. I think a school can set up a Gmail account. So it goes through the school's Gmail. I mean the school's, Google account. So I believe that. So good question. Yeah, no, thank you. So so is there any questions? I should have stopped after the teacher. Did you see how you could do the sharing and the scoring for the teachers? Did that all make sense?
Yes.
Okay. And then now with the students, can you see where they can see everything that they've done and how it's been scored for them? So that's what I'm showing you right here.
The page that's up, right?
What?
That's the page that's currently up on your screen.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So that's the running record that the students can see what they've done. And now what I want to show you is what it looks like when the students actually do the reading. So, so once they select a passage to read, this is what comes up. And they actually see the passage right here, including the picture comes through. When they're ready to record, they can just hit this record button, and so then they can start their recording. Now, once they do that, it lets them record, and it'll give the basic recording screen you're used to seeing. If they want to hear the passage read before they read it themselves, and the teacher has not disabled this function, they can hear the passage read. So that's something they can do. But you can disable this so that they can't hear the passage read. But if that is something you want to allow them to do before they read it, they can. They do have some control over the voice. There's a dictionary that a word can be highlighted and it will bring it up, or a picture dictionary. There's also a translation tool, which is really nice. And then they can set the reading speed that the text-to-speech will read it if they're reading it back. And then it lets them know how difficult the text is, so for their reading level. So that's what the students see when they're reading it. Now, if the students have this is a little confusing, and I'm actually going to shrink this down. First of all, let me ask you, does this make sense, what the students see and how they do the reading?
Linda, can I ask you one thing about it?
Yes, please do.
So when it's reading aloud to them, does it highlight?
Yes, I believe it does. That is a really good question. And it's been a while since I've done that piece, but I believe that it does read aloud. I mean, highlight it, yes. And
then do you have to have read and write for Google in order for it to do that, or is it built right into Fluency Tutor?
That leads me into the next thing that I was going to show you. Okay. So thank you. That's perfect. This Fluency Tutor is an app by itself. It does not need read and write for Google. Okay.
Oh, great.
So it is unto itself. What I want to show you is I'm going to pull up my web page, and what you will see is there's going to be this. Just a second, I need to get my little pointer out for you again. So here's Fluency Tutor as its extension, okay? So is its app, okay? And then if you see the same little green book person right here in your bookmark bar, it means you also have the extension. So when they are reading a passage, they can actually pull up the Fluency Tutor, and that's where they would read it right there and send it to their teacher. So it's actually a little different than this one, which they log into separately as its own app. This is an extension that will allow them to record it and send it to their teacher, something that wasn't already sent to them. Now, there's a third way, is in read and write for Google. They actually have put the Fluency Tutor as an option right within read and write for Google.
Okay.
Does that all make sense?
Yeah.
So
you would have to download the extension and the app then to...
Right, but you don't have to download all three. I just want to let you know because it was a little confusing to me as it kept telling me, do you want this app, do you want this extension? So I try to make it clear, and so that's the only thing I wanted to clear up. But you don't need read and write to use this, but it has now been built in as a free feature of read and write.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay?
Yep.
So that's Fluency Tutor for Google. Does anybody have any questions or want me to show you any of these other screens again before we move on? Okay. Okay, great. Thanks. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my desktop at this point. And again, I've given you on the follow-up, I have given you links to the actual Text Help website for this, plus some videos that show you how to use it. Text Help has a really good YouTube channel that just walks you through a lot of their apps and extensions and shows you how to use them. So I encourage you to check that out if you want to look into one of their products more. So I did just want to show you on the page that you can, on the premium version, you will get a lot more statistics on your students with Fluency Tutor. So you're gonna get their background and their history of what they've read and the graph of how much they've read, their words per minute. So this comes with the premium version, and on here I say it's $99 per year. that was the last price I knew. I don't know. I hesitate to give prices because they change. They'll usually work with you on it. So I hesitate to ever put them up. So it's probably around $99 a year, but I always encourage you to talk directly to the vendor because depending on how many students you're going to get it for, how many teachers, that can fluctuate. So plus it can fluctuate just because they may change their price. So that's Fluency Tutor. So if there's no other questions now, I am going to go ahead and move on to Read Naturally. But I'll give you a minute if you have any questions on the other two that I've asked, that I've talked about. Okay. So the next one I'm not going to demonstrate as much of because, to be honest, I have not used it myself. I've learned about it. I want to show it to you because I want to show you 3 good products. I don't want to just say these are the only 2 products out there. I want you to know about this product. And I'm sure you've all heard of Read Naturally. And that is an entire curriculum that will help you to remediate your students' reading. But they actually have some assessment tools that I wanted to mention so that you know that you could go get those separate from the actual curriculum. And so they have the Benchmark Assessor Live, which is their assessment tool where you're looking at your fluency. And so that's their web-based oral reading fluency assessment. So similar to the Fluency Tutor, but this is their version of it. And because you would buy this, you would have some data collection that comes with it too, and it's also on the computer. They have their Quick Phonics Screener, which is actually just to screen how well students are understanding phonics. And I wanted to point this out to you because I have given you an article that talks about how you can download this free phonics screener, and you can use it in conjunction with the Signs for Sounds assessment. And what you can do is quickly and accurately identify individual students' strengths and instructional needs in phonics and decoding. And there's an article on how you use it, and the Sights for Sound assessment is free, and so you can actually use that to help you do a whole entire class. And you give them this assessment, but it might point out some students who are having difficulty with decoding and some of those areas in reading that even though it's showing up in spelling, you'd see that it could be something they would need in reading. And so I'm just going to read this to you so that you can see what I'm talking about. Read Naturally offers a free phonics assessment tool that may help you be more efficient in deciding which students need diagnostic assessments. The Signs for Sound assessments available for free were designed to identify students who could benefit from the popular Signs for Sound systematic spelling program and to place the students in appropriate lessons to match their strengths and weaknesses. So it was designed to place them in the right part of their program. However, this assessment can also be used as a screener for quickly determining which students may need a more in-depth diagnostic phonics assessment. And so this is just a free way you could give to your whole class, and you could just see if you can pinpoint some students who might need some help. So I wanted to point that one out in particular because it's free. You can do it to the whole class at once, and it could maybe point to the students that you need to do some further assessing on. And then Read Naturally also has their Reading Fluency Progress Monitor, which continuously monitors the individual student's growth and reading proficiency. And if you're using their program, that automatically happens as they're doing the lessons in the program. So it is continuously monitoring their program. So I wanted to mention that to you. I'm sorry that I can't really show it to you and how it works, but I did at least want you to see how that it's there, and I wanted you to know that you could check it out. They also have a free trial for 30 days. Everything I've shown you, if there was a cost, you can get a free trial. The UPAR even will, over the last couple of years, I've always seen that they'll give you a free trial too. So just for a limited amount of time. But at least you could then try it and see if it's something you want to do. And as I said, the PAR is actually free if you do the print version of it. So just a couple of things I want to finish up with. Well, first, does anybody have any questions on Read Naturally and anything I've shown you so far? Okay. So the next thing I want to do, go ahead.
Just one thing. So Read Naturally, is there just one part of it that's free then?
Yes. The rest of it does come, yeah. But you can check it.
Part of the program.
What?
The rest of it is part of the program?
Well, the way I understand it is it's part of the program, but you can buy different parts of the program. You don't have to buy the entire program. So,
okay, thank you. Yes.
So, and Read Naturally does a lot of seminars often. So you can do, they have great training videos, they have webinars, and then they often do seminars. And so there's a lot of them all over the state where you could actually go to a live seminar if you wanted to also. So their website has all of that. So those were the tools, and here I just give you the Sites for Sounds, that assessment that I just talked about. But one of the things I wanted to talk about before we leave is just that once you decide which tools you want to use with your students, I love this page 10 in the UPAR implementation guide for Don Johnston. I just think it's important that we remember that we need to plan for effectiveness of accommodations. And so I just like these points, and I just want to point them out to us, that students need to be explicitly taught how to use accommodated reading strategies. To just give them the accommodations and not explicitly teach it will not help them. And so it's really important that we explicitly teach them how to use it, and also that we build choices into class routines that help students take responsibility for their own accessing of reading accommodations. Do that. You can role play and plan ways to help students advocate for their needs. You also need to plan for explicit training to help students work through obstacles they might come about. What if my teacher tells me I cannot use my reading accommodation? What if the technology is unavailable? So role play and have a plan for how they're going to, advocate for themselves in those situations. Teach students how to appropriately self-advocate for the use of accommodations. And again, appropriately, because they can advocate, but we want to make sure they do it appropriately. And then ask students that have been successfully using the reading accommodations to be peer support. So I just think these are some great points about how to plan for that effectiveness of accommodations. I do, like I said, wanted to show you some resources for text-to-speech. So if you don't have a text-to-speech, then if you need to trial it, you'd want to use some free ones probably. So Natural Reader is a free one. Text Help Read and Write for Google is free. There's parts of it that are premium, but the text-to-speech does stay free. Don Johnston Snap and Read will give you a free day trial. And then CapD is another screen reader that is quite powerful actually, but there is a free component to it that would allow you to use that as a text-to-speech. And then this will be part of the resource I send you, and then also I will give you this list of where you can find all of these accommodations. So that is everything I had to show you today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, so if people feel more comfortable asking questions or have any questions when it's not being recorded, I'll go ahead and stop that, and then I'm going to go ahead and take roll one more time. So thank you for listening to the recording and watching the webinar.